Hello, everybody.
Hi, we're Queer and Teen. I'm Amy. I use she, her, hers.
I'm Riley. I use she, her, hers too. And I'm Mitch, and I use he, him, his.
Riley has made it very clear that she wants to have an appearance in our final Pride Month video. So here she is.
She's always welcome.
Yep. Yeah.
She's
Such an angel.
a good ally.
She's got her little rainbow bow tie on still.
Oh, sweet thing.
So we have come to the end of Pride Month, but we wanted to talk to you guys today about how to keep Pride alive even throughout the year and not just in June. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get started, we wanted to talk about our favorite Pride highlight from this month. Mitch, what was yours?
My favorite part of Pride Month this year was seeing, especially in our own communities, how intersectional justice work was able to come together. People from the LGBTQ community alongside the Black community, really like taking care of one another and standing up together and, you know, forming these new ways of taking care of their communities. Like, I just think it's a really exciting time, and I love that it fell in Pride Month. It's such a great way to honor our ancestors, really.
I love that. So my favorite part of Pride Month was the fact that the city of Geneva here in New York raised and flew the Pride flag all month long. That's the first time it's ever happened in history. And when we were able to get an inclusive flag,
The progress flag.
Yeah. They ended up taking down the flag they had initially flown and put up the progress flag instead. So talk about all that inclusive intersectional work that's been being done. Geneva helped us be part of that, and I loved that.
So awesome.
Riley's favorite part was getting her rainbow dog treats from Target.
Yeah. She also had little rainbow sweatbands plus the bow tie, so, you know, Riley was really rocking it this month.
She was here for it.
Yeah.
So, Mitch, what are some ways that you feel you can help keep Pride alive even when it's not June?
I think one of the most important things that we can all do is, like, especially now that we're finding ourselves in a world where there's more and more options for, like, healthy representation of the LGBTQ community in media, like choosing to, like, intentionally consume media that, like, honors those journeys and those stories, that hires trans actors to play trans characters, that hires Black actors to play Black characters, you know, those real movements to, like, make media more inclusive of all people exist. And sometimes we have to do our homework and figure out, like, what were the intentions in which something was made. Is this really honoring the person whose story this is? So, you know, it does take a little bit more time, but like I said, there's more and more options too, like in children's books, in literature, in the podcasts we listen to, in the music we listen to support LGBTQ creators and performers. And I think making a commitment to do that is, one, a great way to support and continue to make those possibilities and opportunities, like, tangible for people, but also, like, you're gonna listen and read some really good content if you do that, because the stories are so new and dynamic in so many ways. So that's a great way. And I know I have a reading list a mile long for the year ahead. Now that I have time to read, I'm looking forward in July to starting to dig into some of the books that I have collected over the past 3 months.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's one of those things that I do too. So whenever I go to Barnes and Noble, I go with a list of novels that were written by LGBTQ authors or have LGBTQ characters as their focal points. Partially because, you know, I want to read things that are more inclusive and more that are more I can identify with the character. And also because those authors and writers and artists need their name to be out there, and they need that support as well, because if we want there to be a shift in representation within media, there needs to be proof that there's a pattern of people wanting it. And that's huge. And it's also very difficult to find representation in writing without doing a deep dive.
So when I was in high school, I was 16 years old when, there's a famous story about me and the movie The Runaways with Kristen Stewart doing the story of Joan Jett, and how Blockbuster wouldn't rent it to me because I was underage and the lesbian themes were too much for minors. And I had to finagle a way to get a copy of it anyway to watch it, and I was victorious. But I started doing that deep dive in high school of what stories exist that have people like me in them. And that was, I was identifying as a lesbian at that time. Like, I hadn't really gotten into the thoughts of my gender identity. And I remember at that time that I would order books and then keep them in my locker because the library refused to shelve them. And so if people were looking for, young adult books, like books that were appropriate, that just had gay characters, I had a stack of maybe, 10 that I would share with people.
Well, that you had a little locker library.
I did have a little locker library. But Luna, I forget who the author is, I'll look it up. Luna was the first time I ever saw a book about a trans character. It was earth-shaking to read that book at that time. And I really don't think it's like that anymore. I think and mind you, that was 2010, so it's been 10 years, and there are so many books with so many different trans characters. There's not one archetype, and it's just so exciting to see. But you do really have to do your research to find those titles, because a lot of them are coming from people who don't normally get the boosted platform. So when we're celebrating Pride all year round, it's giving those voices the platform they deserve.
Yeah, I love that. So another way that I personally maintain that feeling of pride throughout the year is just engaging in conversations with people when they bring it up, and letting them get to know me as I am, but letting them have that freedom to ask questions or try and understand a little bit better, because even though it sometimes can be emotional labor to have to do that education, I know that I'm representing my community, and I know that I'm helping somebody understand our community better so that they don't make a misstep later on to somebody who would sincerely be, insulted by it for whatever reason. And I love engaging in those conversations, because the more it comes to the forefront of our society, the more, discussion there is about it. And I take a lot of pride in this job, in being able to do all this outreach to our clients, and being able to do all of this, cultural competency training to so many different agencies. And that's also a real source of pride for me, is doing that cultural competency training, because it shows me who I've become from when I started back in college, when I started, coming to terms with a lot of things. And so it helps give me a sense of pride of, here's your growth, here's where you started, and here's where you've come to since then, and here's where you're going to continue going forward toward. And I love that.
One of the really awesome things about our position and the work that we do is that we are able to open up channels of dialogue that are long term. Recently, a medical provider who we had trained and given information to back in the fall reached out to me for clarification on the Supreme Court and the new law that had gone into effect earlier this month. And that channel exists, and where a lot of times I mean, specifically speaking for trans patients of medical providers, there's kind of like this expectation of the patient to educate the service provider, and that's not appropriate, and it doesn't help anybody. But we are able to continue to facilitate that education. But I think everybody does have, within them, like their own level of comfortability telling their story and sharing your story and correcting people whatever way you need to correct them. Does like facilitate education and is like an awesome way to, maintain the spirit of pride, is that bold, audacious, like, this is who I am, this is what I expect from you, point blank.
And when we're talking about having pride, we're not saying, every day needs to be you're wearing rainbow garb and you're outwardly and vocally and however way saying this is who I am, I'm here to stay. It's even just the tiny things of like, I'm gonna treat myself to some queer literature today, or you know what, I know it's hokey, but I'm gonna go watch an episode of this show. My partner and I right now are watching Love, Victor. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it.
Oh
yeah.
My gosh, it is so good. I love, because it takes the story of Love, Simon, and the main character in this story is like, hey, it's not as easy as you made it look. Like, these are my struggles. I'm from a religious family. Like, my parents are having issues. All these different things. And it's so cohesive, and it shows such a beautiful example of that, figuring out who you are and learning things about yourself and how I want to take this and move forward. And like, this show, as an adult, I've been out for not quite 10 years, I guess 6 years, but even now it's so validating, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember those feelings, I remember those fears, I remember having all these concerns and not knowing where to turn. And I think having that representation is incredible, because it gives people ideas and it shows people like, hey, we understand your struggle. And I love having it be so present, because people who are questioning or considering or wondering or want to be allies or however, they're going to start Googling it, and they're going to start being tied into other agencies, and they're going to start doing that education, and they'll be linked to agencies like ours. And pride can be as simple as waking up and saying, this is who I am and I love me. And I think that gets overlooked in the wake of the pride parades and, the big month-long celebration that corporations present for our community. But it really is just as simple as waking up and being like, this is who I am and I'm okay.
Well, and knowing that wherever you are in your journey and whatever it's going to look like for you and how you approach living your life in a way that is safe and authentic to you, whether you're publicly out and got a pride flag on the front of your house, or it's something that you know to be true of yourself inside and you don't feel it's necessary to communicate with other people because it's not their business. And anywhere else you may fall on that spectrum, just knowing that you are such a loved and valuable part of this community, that there is no right way to be LGBTQ plus, that you can be whoever you are in that moment and be okay and be important and be valued and be worthy and belong. It's something that no matter where your journey takes you, like, you have this community behind you. And a big part of pride is, like, I think, giving people an opportunity to see the community, to know that they're out there. But keeping it alive year round is just like knowing that you do have all of these other people who have had similar experiences, who are there to lift you up and support you when you need it. Like, we very much take care of our own in this community, no matter what stage in the coming out process or identity they might have, as long as they are, really being true to themselves in a way that is beneficial to them and their story and doesn't do harm to others.
Yeah. So moving forward, we are planning on bringing some of our programming to a virtual platform. So our You Are Not Alone program, which is for youth who are 10 to 18, we're going to be doing meetings every Monday at 2:00. So keep an eye out on that. And then for our adults, we're going to be doing the Transgender and Gender Expansive Coalition the first and third Thursday of every month at 5. And then we're working on getting a support group for all adults in the LGBTQ community, whether you're gender expansive or not. And that'll be on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. So we know the importance of keeping Pride alive. We know the importance of maintaining that sense of community, because our state is opening back up, but there's still a lot of fear. There's still a lot of uncertainty, and you've got to be careful. And we understand that, and we know that there are a lot of barriers to people accessing us in person. So we want to make sure that we have platforms available online in order to maintain our lines of communication, in order to maintain our ability to support our community, and for our community to know that you're still not alone. Community is still not canceled. Pride is alive every day of the year, and we're here for you in whatever way you need.
Yeah. We're really excited to get those back up and running and to see everyone's beautiful faces and, be there for a larger portion of, our Finger Lakes community than maybe would have been able to access our physical groups. So lots of good things coming up. And yeah, we're carrying the spirit of Pride with us all year.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week with a new video, but in the meantime, happy Pride. Keep it going, keep it moving forward, and reach out to us if you need anything at all.
Bye.
Bye.